If you work for the Catholic Church and want to avoid burnout, overcome team dysfunctions, and put more souls in the pews, we're here to help. I'm Ty Hua, here with my co-host John Cons, and this is the Catholic Ministry Professionals Podcast. This show provides leadership development for Catholic churches. Every week, you can expect engaging discussions, expert interviews, and actionable advice to help you move Jesus' mission forward in your parish. Today, we're having a conversation with a real live Catholic ministry professional, Father Mark Beran. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this. Maybe you heard this from is it Becky?
Yeah,
that you're in touch with. And I think I've told this story before. I'm glad to have you on here. This maybe almost didn't happen because I'm rude online, because she had when we were initially putting out the podcast on Siouxland Catholic Radio, the link they put in was the direct Google Drive link to our MP3s of the podcast. And so I got this request to a file in my Google Drive, and I'm like, who are you? What do you want? I just sent back a quick email. Why are you requesting access to this? And she was very gracious. She was very kind in her response. And then that led kind of around the way to you, Father Mark. And you run we're going to let you tell a little bit about your ministry here in just a second, but sounds like you're in charge of 11 parishes, which blows my mind. So why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are? Let us get out of the way.
Okay.
Who is Father Mark Beran, and what does he do?
Yeah, my name's Father Mark Beran. I'm a priest of the Archdiocese of Omaha, so I'm on the Nebraska side of the river. I've been a priest as of a couple of days ago. I've been a priest for 22 years.
Wow! Congratulations!
Thank you.
Well, thanks. It's gone by really quick, and I've loved every minute of it. People ask me where I'm from. Where I'm from is kind of a complicated question. My parents are from Little Howells, Nebraska, here in Northeast Nebraska. But it took us 6 states and 25 years for my parents to kind of make back to their home state. We ended up right down an hour south of here in Fremont. And I'm really glad we did. I went to high school in Los Angeles. And so to come to the Midwest, get to know my relatives, get to know my cousins and my grandparents better, and plus just the Midwest values, I think, were really good for me and probably a big part of my journey to being a priest. As far as my ministry these days, it's kind of we're figuring it out still. As of last July 1st, our archdiocese, like so many others, went through a total kind of reorganization, especially for us in the rural area, because we have the booming city of Omaha, but still trying to balance that out with all of our rural parishes in Northeast Nebraska. So I was asked to be the pastor of 11 churches. I don't know if you want me to list them all. I always miss one anyway.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
They kind of go from Jackson up north by Sioux City, over to Emerson and Pender on the west, and then south to Decatur and Lyons, which is 40 miles south of South Sioux City. We figured it out. It's about 1,200 square miles, which is almost exactly the size of Rhode Island. That just makes it sound impressive. I mean, it shows you how small Rhode Island is too, but it just makes it sound really impressive. We have that kind of area. There are pieces with bigger areas than me and about as many churches. And so really the big adjustment has been, I don't have any experience with more than, before that, I had 4 churches. 3 of them were on the Omaha and Winnebago Indian reservations here in Northeast Nebraska. I've lived here in Winnebago on the Winnebago reservation for the last 8 years. I run a school here, the St. Augustine Indian Mission, founded by St. Catherine Drexel. And so a lot of the last 8 years of my life has been administrating the school, but also fundraising, because our families can't afford to kind of run a Catholic school. So a lot of my job is fundraising, but this last year things totally changed. I'm kind of a pastor again, which is kind of nice. I'm more involved in the spiritual side of things and the sacramental side of things. But trying to bring these 11 churches together and form a vision, it's it hasn't been easy, but I think we're going small steps in the right direction.
Yeah, I was going to say, with an assignment that big, first of all, any priest to get assigned 4 parishes, which you said your previous one was, probably feels like a lot, sounds like a lot. And then all of a sudden you get this jump to 11. So when you get that news, or I just even practically, where do you start with a ministry like that? What's your first move? What's been your approach here?
Yeah, the first move was trying to connect with the parishes as much as we could. Like even before I visited all the churches on the weekends, before we even started, I did not want us to be. It would be so easy with so many churches to be just disconnected. We're just some office in Winnebago that's not really connected to their church. So really right away, relationship building was number one. Trying to acknowledge the pain, because out of our 11 churches, 5 don't have weekend mass anymore. We rotate a Tuesday evening mass so they can keep the Eucharist in their church and things like that. So really dealing with that pain, that was really, really hard. And then and then really this whole year has been me going with our leaders and with the Archdiocese and just say, okay, how do we run this? Because I can't even show up to all the parish council meetings. How do we? You would never ask somebody to run 11 branches of a store, and so we're trying to figure out, how administratively to how can we simplify things, maybe merge parishes together, but yet always maintain the identity of each one, because each one has its own character. So we're kind of figuring that out as we go along, because I don't know anybody that has experience with big groupings of churches like this. It's something totally new. So hopefully the Holy Spirit will lead us in the right way to go, and the best way to serve our people.
Yeah. So what does that mean for you to try and meet people in that pain point? Is that series of meetings? Is it kind of walk us through, say a little more about that?
Yeah, initially a lot of it was communication. So a lot of parish meetings. Luckily, I had the 4 smallest churches in our area. So out of the 5 that don't have weekend mass anymore, 3 of them I was the pastor before. So luckily I already had a connection with those parishes. Some of them only had 12 people on the weekend. So they kind of they knew our number of priests was going down. But yeah, we had a lot of town hall meetings in the churches, met with a lot of parish leaders, because they're the ones that everybody asks, to make sure they had a clear idea of what was going on. Luckily, we had a planning team with one person from each church, and the Archdiocese kind of gave us parameters. You need everybody within 20 miles of a weekend mass. A priest can only say so many masses, like 4 masses in 2 locations or 3 masses in 3 locations. And then we're kind of tasked to put the puzzle together. And I was really lucky, because the leadership we had, they all loved their church, but they all saw, it was kind of neat. They kind of came together, and now they're kind of our family parish council. They really came together, and they were able to see beyond their church to kind of how do we serve the whole area? Not just how do I protect my church and how do I protect my mass? They were all able to kind of see a bigger picture and realize, okay, we got a problem. Let's walk through it together. So I feel very blessed. That didn't happen everywhere. So I feel very blessed to have a team like that.
And that's kind of huge too, because you think about, in a sense, then you've got a cheerleader, for lack of a better word, a herald in each of the parishes that can kind of give voice to that. Maybe yes, you were pastor of a handful of those parishes and whatnot, but now you've got somebody's in the parish in the pews that's saying, hey, this is a good thing. They're really trying hard here to help everybody move forward, and to be able to kind of spread that good news to what does the scripture say, that sweet are the feet of those who bring the good news, right? They're bringing those sweet feet to the parish and trying to really help you lay that groundwork, cultivate that soil as you guys do this. Are there other priests then, or are you one priest for 11 parishes?
No, I do have 2 assistants.
That's good.
I eventually will get down to 1 assistant. We kind of plan for 10 years. So we kind of made a plan for the number of priests we predict to have in 2033.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll eventually get down to 2 priests, but I'm glad for now that we have 3.
So, Father, when you're talking about, the size of this project that you've got, right? The size of Rhode Island, the thing that I think of is he's got to have a good team. And so when I think of team, I also think of, okay, well, we all got to move in the same direction, right? Let alone the right direction, but we got to move in the same direction. Now, how do you develop and communicate a cohesive vision for such a large and diverse group of parishes?
To be honest, we haven't fully figured that out. One of the things the Archdiocese has encouraged us to have is each pastor to have a leadership team, so that I don't have every gift. I'm not a business kind of minded person, or, I definitely have weaknesses. And so surrounding myself with some people, I have 6 other people on my leadership team. And we meet weekly, including with my 2 brother priests. And so we deal with things together. So one, I'm not dealing with it alone, which is really good. And then that group is the one that I kind of pray with and like, okay, what is our vision for these churches? We haven't specifically spelled that out. We know it involves really renewing the faith and really making evangelization higher on our priority list. It used to be like, if we have any time, we'll get around to bringing people to Jesus. We got to run a school and run parishes first. But we're really trying to change the priority list, because the number one thing is to make disciples. I mean, that's the number one. That's why we exist. And so trying to take steps to make sure we move that up the priority list so that is the number one thing we're focused on. So I'm really starting with that leadership team to make sure we have a common vision together. And then whenever I have a chance, no matter what group I start with, I always start with like, what's our goal? Like, what is our vision? And to get them starting, because our parishes have been in survival mode for so long. Like, they just didn't want their doors to close. That was really their main goal. And so to change a mindset to be like, okay, how do we go from a survival mentality to like actually, how do we make disciples? How do we actually grow? How do we do what Jesus wants us to do? So whenever I have a chance, like Sunday homilies, sometimes any parish group I have, we always try to share our vision with every single group, but it is going to take time to change that mentality, because I got to admit, most of my priesthood, the only mentality I was really given was, how do we survive? Like, but then how do we and be orthodox, kind of like do the sacraments the right way. But instead to change the mentality, like, no, how do we make disciples? How do we walk with people through their faith journey? And now we're starting this next year. We're going to start we call it a clear path of discipleship in our archdiocese, where every parish is supposed to have clear steps where people can grow in their faith no matter where they are in their faith journey. So whether they have really never experienced God, or, just faith hasn't been a part of their life, something for them to kind of get to know who Jesus is and who he wants to be in their life and how to form a relationship with him. And then after that, like, you got to grow throughout your life. So what do we have to have something for people to continue to grow in their faith? And then the third step is to really give them the skills and everything to make disciples themselves too, to teach them how to invite people, how to pray for people, and then how to walk with people through their journey of faith too.
I want to follow up on something you said there.
Yeah.
You said kind of that switching that mentality of, we're just trying to survive. We're getting through Sunday. We're trying to maintain the church, trying to keep our doors from closing. We just need to remain orthodoxy, whatever. To switching that to really the main goal is making disciples.
Yep.
And those other pieces are a part of that, but the main part, and you said your priesthood, there was a point where that kind of switched for you too. Can you think of like, what was the thing that triggered that for you, that mentality shift or a moment? Could you kind of say a little bit about that?
I was really blessed to do college ministry for 9 years, 1 year at University of Nebraska, Omaha, and then 8 years at Wayne State College, my alma mater. And I think college campus ministry was the first place we realized we can't just have a church and expect all those Catholic kids to come through the doors. Like the days where you just open the doors and the kids magically come to mass or come to your programs, we realized like on college campuses, those days are done. We have to go to them. We have to reach out to them, and we have to give them like small groups and the support they need to grow in their faith. And so really college campus ministry was where I first saw that change of mindset. How do we go out rather than just take care of the people that are in? So we started working with a group of evangelical Catholic out of Wisconsin to kind of, at first they kind of formed our small group leaders. And then we started producing focus missionaries, even though we didn't have focus on our campus, Fellowship of Catholic University Students. And so we got on their map and eventually got to be part of Focus with focus missionaries on our campus too. But it really was that experience of campus ministry that helped me see that. And especially in Wayne, we didn't really have a Newman Center. The church was 2 blocks off of campus. And so we really wanted to kind of integrate, and we wanted to prepare them to go back to parishes. So we tried to get the college students, kind of the college ministry and the parish to be together. This way they'd experience parish life before they graduated. And then through that, just kind of go. So it kind of made a natural transition for my mind and my heart to go, okay, how do we take this from the college campus to our parish?
What about it made you want to do that? Like, what was your experience of it that said, I want to do this at the parish?
To be honest, I'm tired of confirmations where I don't see them again afterwards. I'm tired of baptizing kids and never seeing them again. I'm tired of my family members wandering away from the faith. Like, I know God wants something different, and I know my heart, like the heart of every single priest wants something different. And I know that what is offered to our young people and to all adults is not making them happy, is not giving them peace. And I know only faith is only when Jesus kind of became alive for me, and my faith came alive. That's the only way I found that peace. And I just want everybody else to kind of have that same experience, from my family members to my parishes, because it's not just that I want that. People need it. They need the peace, the love, the mercy that only Jesus can give.
Amen.
Yeah,
That's your vision right there, man.
Yep. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think of when you mention that, gone are the days where you just open the door and the students come in. I think there's from a very different perspective, but it's the same thing that's happening with our parish ministry that's happening. Like, we can't just expect for volunteers to show up and be good at what they do, because the demographic that we're targeting, and maybe I shouldn't say targeting, but they've changed. So in response to that, I think parish ministry also has to change. So, one of the questions that kind of pops up in my head is, do you have any strategies for building and maintaining strong collaborative teams, especially in your case, because now you're doing it across 1,200 square miles?
Yeah.
Like, do you have any of those strategies that you can share?
Yeah. The first strategy, like one of the things we're looking at now is actually to throwing out the idea of kind of merging parishes. I can't run. We have 11 separate organizations now, 11 separate parishes, and really asking them. And it doesn't change the mass time. It doesn't change the CCD program. We're just talking about how do we simplify things administratively. But then also, I think one of the benefits of that is too, for these parishes next to each other, they don't have the resources individually to really launch efforts for evangelization. I mean, the one thing we really lack in our parishes is people, the people resource. But maybe together we can. Maybe a group of 3 or 4 churches together, because we have some just beautiful faith-filled people. And maybe at one church we don't have enough to kind of really launch something, but maybe 3 or 4 together we do. And also, really the only way we get adults involved in our parishes right now is to be a part of parish councils and finance councils. So we're very kind of administrative heavy in terms of people being involved. Well, why don't we simplify that? This way we have time for our leaders to grow in their faith, first of all, themselves, and then encouraging them to help others grow in their faith too. So really the main strategies we're looking at is kind of pooling resources together between parishes, because we could do more together than we can separate. And then freeing up our leaders to not just be stuck in administrative things, but to really free them up to be involved in the evangelization and stuff that we want to do.
To me, that's a really solid idea. I think about, I grew up in a rural parish, and we've heard from some rural parishes as we're talking to some of the things that we talk about do tend towards parishes that have several people on staff, so you can utilize those. But in a situation where you've got a smaller parish and you don't have that option, then you really lean on your volunteers and they need to be involved. But so many times, if mom and dad are both working or whatever it might be, it's hard. I think about my experience growing up in a small town in a rural parish. The thing that was hard for me as a youth to get engaged, to want to show up to things, the thing that was tough for me is there weren't none of my friends. They either one weren't Catholic and didn't go to our church, or two, they weren't, the people my age weren't actually interested in their faith. So even for me, I had my mom was the DRE. I think I had a little more engagement and interest, but there weren't a lot of people to meet. So then occasionally you'd have maybe a youth conference or something. You'd go and you'd be like, wow, there's so many people. This is amazing. And that's inspiring. But how to make that more a part of the rhythm of what we do. And so when you've got a community that's got smaller parishes, to try and get those youth, those parents, whoever it might be, to put their resources, their time to show up together, and suddenly it becomes a bigger experience of the church, and you have that. And I think you're kind of speaking about this a little bit, but then, so how are you trying to engage parishioners from all these different communities and to encourage them then to have that active participation when, maybe I got to go 20 minutes out of my way to show up at church? How are you starting to get that thought percolating with people?
Yeah. To be honest, we're starting really small. One of the things we were encouraged to do when we kind of formed these bigger groupings of churches was to have an evangelization coordinator. And with our big area, we could, like, my desire is always to fast forward things. Oh, I want things in every single church. Let's just, we have a North and a South group, and we'll really get things going. But also, I've been a priest long enough to know I've launched efforts and they burn out after a year because you overextended yourself or you weren't investing enough in the leaders. And so, yeah, we're starting really, really small. We put together we call it our evangelization coordinator, just put together a small evangelization team and just trying to give them some formation, like, what are the steps people go through in their faith journey? What would a parish that helps people walk through their journey, like, what would that look like? They're also, they became kind of a test group we were kind of testing programs like Alpha, which is just for people in the early stages of their faith to get to know Jesus for the first time. So we really just started investing in a small group of really faithful people that have the hearts for this. And then this next year, they're hoping to launch probably even not a big Alpha group, because there's only so many people that and we want them to have the quality of the experience is more important than how many people we have. Because if we have a quality experience, it will grow itself, hopefully, over time, as people kind of catch fire. Hopefully they feel drawn to stay involved in it, and then hopefully it will naturally grow. So actually we've started really small, investing in a small group of people. In fact, when our evangelization coordinator started, she's like, what do I do? We got all these churches, what do I do? I'm like, just go meet people, have coffee with people, and hear their faith stories. And God will show us kind of the people that are the right people to start with, that are available, that are faithful, that are on fire, that have the hearts. And then really invest in them, really set them on fire, and trust that the fire will spread, from that small group. And maybe it just starts in one location, But then if we really, it's all about setting that fire and letting it spread out.
Well, and it sounds to me like you've got a kind of a commitment to evolving with it, right? So you start with that small piece. What's nice about that is when you come in with initiative that you want to push down on it, that's when it runs out of steam. But if you're lighting a real fire, what is it? What starts a fire? Well, you got to have kindling and you got to have a spark, right? And you start with that spark, and then you slowly add to it so it can build. And if you feel the freedom and you're willing to take the time to start with what's there and feed that can grow, and then you're adjusting and building in the pieces as you go. And to me, that's a much more sustainable model and approach.
And plus, it must be a genius model because Jesus used it.
That guy.
You think? I mean, it kind of looked like he wasted his time. He only really, really invested in 12 people, and one of them even walked away. But it was because he invested in that small group of people, and really, with his love and his mercy, and really empowering them and then sending them out. It was through him investing in a small group that started it all. So I have to remind myself of that sometimes, because I always okay, let's invest in 100 people. Oh wait, Jesus didn't do that. Why don't we just start with really invest in a small group of people and go from there.
Absolutely. Well, there's something to that too, just in the scriptures of the sending of the 72, right? Or the sending of the 12 to go out and prepare the way for him to arrive, right? To really invest in those people so they can be sent. I love that. That to me, it feels spirit led.
And one thing about having small churches is I imagine if we just had a couple people a year at each of our churches, just kind of catch fire, just where their faith really comes alive. And there's, oh man, Lord, I want to live for you. I want to live for you, and I want to share with the others. In a matter of 5-10 years, the difference, it wouldn't take a lot to totally transform the culture of our parishes. Because in 10 years, you'd have 10, 15 people in each church that have caught fire. And that's a big percentage of the people already. And that changes the culture. So that's one of the benefits of small churches. I think it takes less kindling you were talking about to have it catch fire.
Father Mark, you talked about, having this grand vision of 100 people, and really just considering Jesus in his walk with small groups. One of the things we forget about is our own spiritual life. So how do you maintain your own spiritual life while managing the demands of leading this huge project of multiple parishes?
Yeah, it's on my mind a lot, because I realized last week, my anniversary was on June 1st, and I've been ordained 22 years. And in 22 years, I'll be 70, so I could apply for retirement. So I'm exactly in the middle of my priesthood. And I want to do this in a healthy way for a long, long time. And so, the spiritual side has to be a big part of it. I knew when I came to Winnebago, when I came to the reservation, it took me 2 years to build the relationships here, because I was another, white man entering the community, and it just took time to kind of build relationships here with the tribes, to let them know that I was here for them, not for me, and to really build that trust. And so I knew those 2 years was going to be kind of a lonely spot. So I knew I had to shore up my spiritual direction. I know I've had a really great priest support group that I meet with on a monthly basis. I'm blessed to have a really good family. I got 5 brothers and sisters and 10 nieces and nephews, and my dad's just an hour south. So I'm blessed a lot with a supportive family too. But I realized, especially this last year, if I'm not taking care of myself, physically and spiritually, I'm going to be in big trouble long term. One of the first things I did when I got to Winnebago is I requested permission to have a chapel in my house, to have the Eucharist in my house. St. Catherine Drexel, who founded our school, she built our first school here in Winnebago. She founded the Blessed Sacrament Sisters. So I kind of used her to, I've always been close to the Eucharist as a priest, but to really renew that, I need to do those things to be a healthy and holy person. Because I'm not a robot who can just go. I have to invest in myself and surround myself with good people. I'm lucky to have a staff too. The people I work with here, my mom passed away 3 days after I got to Winnebago, but now I got like several moms. They'll even pull me aside and say, "Okay, Father, are you taking care of yourself? Like, are you taking your day off? And are you praying?" And so I'm kind of blessed too to have some people who really will have those direct conversations with me. Even a lady this morning called me and asked me how I was doing, and so I've been blessed that way too. I have some people that definitely keep me accountable to it.
Well, that's good. I was going to say, as you were talking about it, I started thinking about my own pastor. I was like, what's a good way to reach out without, I think kind of a Midwest thing is to not ask the question because we don't want to be rude or we don't want to overstep our boundaries or whatever it might be, but to support our priests in this as well, especially as the numbers seem to dictate they need to do more and more and more and longer and longer and longer and older and older and older. And so like how do we as parishioners, practically speaking, help you to manage that, help you to stay healthy and holy? I guess that would be the question. If I was a parishioner listening to this, is it okay for me to just walk up to my priest? And obviously you've got to have some level of friendship or some level of familiarity to feel the permission to do it. But how does someone get started if they want to help, quote unquote, take care of their priest, or, just be that support, be that person who's helping them to stay healthy and holy?
Yeah, it does depend on the relationship you have with your priest. That does make a difference. But I don't know any priest who would turn away somebody or be offended by somebody that says, "Hey, I care about you." I try to, like a parishioner who's trying to put themselves in my shoes and just says to the priest, "I don't know how you do it. Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help?" I don't know any priest who wouldn't appreciate that, because we don't want to go through it alone. Our parishes are our families, and we need their support. So we hope to support them, and we trust that they support us too. So I just encourage you, encourage people, don't be afraid, even in some small way, to just reach out to the priest and say, "Hey, you've been on my mind, you've been on my heart. Just know that I'm praying for you." Even just something simple like that. I have there's a lady in Jackson. I think she has an unofficial Hug a Priest ministry. She always, after Mass, she always comes up to each of us and says, "Okay, I haven't hugged a priest today." And so those, not everybody, once again, it depends on the relationship.
Yeah, be authentic. Don't make it weird.
Yeah, she can do it. That's her gift. She's just kind of a warm, kind lady. Mm-hmm. But just kind of do it in the way that kind of works for you and your relationship with the priest.
Gotcha. All right. Kind of transitioning back to the ministry here. Can you think of like an innovative initiative, but something new that you've started or implemented that and that you feel has had a decent impact or good impact that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah. I wouldn't say we're doing anything revolutionary or anything really new. I think really taking the time with my leadership team to do formation together. We'll watch videos. There's a website like Revive Parishes, which is all about parish leadership and what it means to evangelize and what it means to be a parish focused on making disciples. We did realize whatever we can do to invest in ourselves, to grow in our own kind of spiritual formation, to really pray together. That's probably been the biggest difference last year or two, is we've really kind of focused on not just opening, like one rule. When we founded this new family of parishes, we call it the first 15 rule. So every meeting, the first 15 minutes are set aside for prayer. It might be reflecting on the gospel for that Sunday. It might be, where did you experience God this week? Or it might just be, hey, somebody in the room is suffering, so why don't we just take some time to just pray with them? So really making prayer, to be honest, most of my years as a priest, we just kind of, okay, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, let's get through the meeting quickly and Lord help us, that was our prayer. But to really take time to really make prayer more the heart of what we do, and to show that it is important, it's worth those first 15 minutes. It might seem like, you might not get enough done, but it changes the dynamics of the group. First of all, it opens them up to the spiritual presence of God, not just to figure out the finances and stuff, but like, okay, Lord, what do you want? And it just changes the dynamics of our meetings. So it's nothing revolutionary, but it's just, setting aside 15 minutes at the start of each meeting for prayer.
So we typically do a segment called the Devil's Advocate, and we weren't going to do it on the show, but it's just something in me feels like I need to ask you this.
Sure.
Let's say I'm on your committee, right? And you're like, hey, we're going to start with prayer. And my stance is, I'm busy, Father. I don't have time to pray. Can we just get through the meeting and do what Jesus is having us do? Let's skip over the prayer. Let's skip over the reflection and everything. Let's just get it out of the way. Let's just finish the meeting. What would you say to somebody like that?
Yeah, I actually have some experience of that. Especially like the first finance council meeting, because those are kind of finance, kind of business people, and some of them are farmers. Like, let's just get to the business. And a couple of them, were just really quiet. Or it was just something totally different that they had never experienced before. Like, oh wait, I don't just hear the word of God. You want me to kind of see how it speaks to me, and you want me to potentially share that with people. So yeah, I will admit that some of the people, it took them a little time to come along. That's where I had to trust, like, okay, Lord, if this is from you, the fruit that comes from this will somehow show them that it's worth it over time. They might not get it the first month or the first 6 months, but maybe that person's, and we have had some people kind of open up as we go along. People who, even shared a little bit of their faith journey themselves, even in a finance council meeting. But yeah, it didn't happen overnight for everybody. But yeah, just really trusting that they would see the fruits of it over time. That's really the only thing that kept me going. Because I was tempted. Oh, they didn't like that. Let's just get rid of it. But a few people convinced me that no, let's have them get used to it. Give them time to get used to it, and then hopefully the fruits of it speak for itself.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what you'd mentioned with the lady with the Hug a Priest ministry. It depends on the relationship. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if this is a new committee and you're just stepping into it, you have to stay faithful to what Jesus did. And I'm sure Jesus in every step of the way led every day with prayer, led everything with prayer. So I think it would behoove us to do the same in our ministries if we are staying faithful to the Holy Spirit and to the church. So I just know there's a lot of people that have been burnt out. So another, churchy thing or Catholic thing that we got to do to make the meeting draw out even longer. They're not about it, So I think it refocuses our hearts and our spirit to try to do what the Lord's asking us to do in these ministries. So thanks for clarifying that.
It's also, I think too, we have to, there's a reality that's worth being honest about, which is that we have 1 or 2 generations that they were taught to say prayers, but they were not taught how to pray. They were taught to say prayers. They weren't taught how to hear God speak. And so by doing that very practically, that doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't, where you learn to recognize God's voice and spiritually discern things. So it practically deals with that reality that we have a lot of adults that should be engaged in a new way, in a deeper way, but they're not, just because they don't have the tools at their disposal. So you're now giving them the tools. And again, when you give that access to the Holy Spirit like that, it's gonna take flame.
Yeah, to be honest, I was one of those people that I wasn't raised to when I entered the seminary, all of a sudden my family was asking me to lead prayers, like Thanksgiving dinner. And I'm like, wait a second, I have no training.
Magic.
Yeah. Or even I even found myself, even as a priest, sometimes hesitant, like if I visited someone in the hospital, like hesitating to just say, hey, is it okay if I pray with you? Like if they're not Catholic. But there's no harm in just asking. I mean, if they say no, fine, honor their freedom. But yeah, it is something new. I know when I do it with our school kids, I'll try to teach them how to lead a prayer. Oh man, the first time it is like I'm asking them to cut off their arm and hand it to me. Um, but yeah, so it is a totally new, different thing. But when people do have an experience of it, like we had one night, we just got our leaders together. We kind of had these monthly nights to help adults grow in their faith. And one night we just simply like had people pair off and just ask the other person, hey, what do you want me to pray for? And actually say a prayer for them. And then the other person, hey, what do you want me to pray for? And then say a prayer over them. And the room, like everybody just felt so connected at the end of it. So that's where you have to trust in the fruits to speak for themselves. Like you'll see the Spirit move in, and that will hopefully convince people.
I remember the first time I led. One of my big things was leading Lectio from the front, like modeling what it is to enter into the scriptures and respond to it. And so I would try to, slowly build up, but get to the point where eventually you're asking people, was there a word or a phrase or something? And, what was it? And they raise their hand and they might say like, Jesus wept, or maybe the word was alive, or, whatever it might be. But then drawing that connection for them, like you just proclaimed the word. You just proclaimed the word, like it's concrete then, and it comes alive because you are saying, I think God said this to me. And then as you go, God said this to me, and it makes it concrete, and they're proclaiming it out loud. And suddenly that's a new life that's brought into just those simple moments by doing that. I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
It's better than any icebreaker, any cheesy icebreaker. It does bring people together, especially if they build the trust to where they can actually share, hey, this is where I experienced God lately, or when they get to the point where they can be kind of a little vulnerable with each other and share like their grandma being a big influence on their faith, just anything. It really unites the group together too in ways that you just wouldn't otherwise.
How dare you, sir? 2 truths and a lie? You're going to put the gospel over 2 truths and a lie?
I was thinking the same exercise.
What was it? The human knot. That was the other one. Let's all hold sweaty hands with the people around you.
Yeah. I've done that one.
Yeah, Father, this has been awesome, and we can't have great experts to interview without a little bit of help. So I'm actually going to ask you for help on, any ideas on who the next person we could interview be.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't given that much thought. One lady I've gotten to know lately, Lisa Niebuhr from the Siouxland Catholic radio station. We're going to be part of the Eucharistic procession as going to the Eucharistic Congress in Indianapolis. They're going to come up to Winnebago for the day, so she's kind of helping us organize that. And she just has a beautiful heart for Catholic radio, but then anything to do to kind of spread the faith and even connecting different groups together. She's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah. We know Lisa. She connected us to Siouxland Catholic Radio to begin with. I never thought about having her on the show though.
Yeah, shame on us.
That's on us. Yeah, we'll make that right.
Well, I'm sure you guys have a lot of people that would be great. I mean, you guys won't run out of people, I'm sure. Yeah, we've been working with Fred, and I know Fred was on your show, Fred and Kara from Draw Near. We've been working a little bit with them here in Winnebago as well. That's what I was listening to is your show with Fred.
Yeah, we've got Kara slated to be on the show here in the next couple of weeks. So yeah.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
This has been a great conversation. Is there anywhere our listeners can go to connect with you or to support your ministry, Father?
Yeah, they can go to SaintAugustineMission.org, or just search for St. Augustine Indian Mission or Holy Apostles Family Parishes, and here it's easy to find me.
Awesome, great. Well, again, thank you for for being on the show. Thank you for just sharing your insight, your wisdom, and even being authentic and just honest about some of the areas of struggle and how much work that can be. We really appreciate that. So thank you for being on the Catholic Ministry Professionals podcast. And thank you, dear listeners, for listening to the Catholic Ministry Professionals podcast. If you want to transform your parish through your work, but you're not sure where to start, you can download our free parish health assessment at catholicministryprofessionals.com/free assessment. It's just 36 questions. It only takes about 5 minutes to fill out, and afterward you will have a color-coded picture of your parish's health that you can use to fuel better conversations, prioritize better work, and become a better leader. You can email us or send feedback to catholicminpros@gmail.com. And finally, don't forget to text this episode to a priest or a friend of ministry that can benefit from it.
With that, we'll see you in the vineyard.